It's July 1789, and Paris has no idea it's living through its last normal day. Within years, the king's head will fall into a basket to the roar of a crowd, and the thousand-year-old monarchy will vanish in a spray of blood. But right now, the Seine glitters at dawn. Heavy barges laden with firewood and grain cut through the morning mist, oars slapping against the gray water. Church bells ring from dozens of towers, Notre Dame, Saint Eustache, and the Abbey of Saint-Germain. The air is thick. It smells of wood smoke, horse manure, and the sharp metallic tang of river mud. You are standing at the Porte de la Grève, watching the city wake up. Laborers unload sacks of flour under the watchful eyes of royal tax collectors. Somewhere in the gilded halls of Versailles, just 12 miles away, ministers are whispering about bankruptcy, bread riots, and the Third Estate. Words that mean nothing to the street sweepers, but everything to the future of the world. Paris hasn't seen the fire yet. Most people think the current tension is just another political spat, another year of bad harvests, or God's judgment on a spendthrift queen. Today, we are walking through a city that feels eternal in its hierarchy. We will see what ordinary life looks like before the Bastille falls and the world turns upside down. Paris in 1789 holds roughly 600,000 people, crammed into narrow medieval streets and spilling out into the sprawling faubourgs. It is a city of stone and timber, of unimaginable luxury and gut-wrenching poverty. Our route moves from the docks at sunrise to the streets after the watchmen light their lanterns. 7 stops, morning to night. One day in a city with no idea what's coming. The Porte de la Grève, early morning. The docks are already a cacophony of sound. Sailors shout in dialects from Normandy and Provence. Stevedores haul massive grain sacks, their backs straining under the weight. A crane groans as it lifts barrels of wine destined for the taverns of the Marais. The wharf is slick with fish guts and river slime. One wrong step and you are in the Seine. This is where Paris breathes. Grain comes in or the city starves. France is deep in a financial crisis. The American War of Independence cost millions, which means taxes on everything: salt, wine, tobacco, and the very bread on the table. A laborer earns maybe 15 to 20 sous a day hauling cargo. It's enough for a loaf of coarse bread, a carafe of sour wine, and a spot on a shared straw mattress in a tenement. It is not enough to save. He buys breakfast from a street vendor, a trunk of dark bread and a bowl of lentil soup for a couple of sous. Thieves work the crowds here, looking for distracted merchants. Royal enforcers watch for salt smugglers. Get caught, and you'll end up in the Châtelet prison or worse. A traveler from the countryside tells anyone listening that the peasants are burning manor houses in the provinces. They say the harvest has failed, that the nobility is hoarding grain to starve the poor. Most people shrug. There are always rumors in the cafes. The market at Les Halles is filling up. Time to move inland. Les Halles Market, mid-morning. Les Halles is the belly of Paris, and it is packed. Timber stalls line the muddy squares, hanging painted signs overhead because few can read. A giant wooden tooth for the barber surgeon, a gilded loaf for the baker. The upper floors of the surrounding houses lean out so far they almost block out the sky. A fishmonger's wife argues fiercely with a customer. Prices are up, not just because of the war, but because of the coldest winter in decades. The Great Winter of 1788 killed the crops, and now bread costs more than half a worker's daily wage. She pays the price anyway, grumbling about the Austrian woman in Versailles. Near the pillory, the king's guards drag a man through the crowd. He stole a loaf of bread from a stall. By noon, he'll be locked in the stocks, exposed to the midday sun and the pelted filth of the market-goers. Justice is public, fast, and brutal. Fire buckets hang at every corner, a constant reminder of how easily these timber and thatch neighborhoods can vanish. A town crier pushes through, ringing a bell to announce a new decree from the Parlement. New taxes to pay for the royal debt. The crowd grumbles, a low, vibrating sound of resentment, but they don't riot, not yet. A servant in a fine livery hurries past with a basket of delicacies, heading toward the wealthier districts. Let's follow. A noble's hôtel particulier in the Marais, midday. This is a different Paris. The streets are wider here, the air less heavy with the smell of the gutter. Houses are made of grand white limestone, with soaring windows and hidden gardens. Inside the dining room of a count, the family sits for their main meal. They eat roasted pheasant, delicate white bread made from the finest flour, and sip champagne. Servants in powdered wigs bring courses of truffles and candied fruits. Outside the iron gates, beggars wait for the scraps, their eyes fixed on the smoke rising from the kitchen chimneys. The Count reads a letter from his estate in Burgundy. Business is strained. The peasants are grumbling about feudal dues. He is worried about his income, his investments, and his standing at court, not his life. Revolution is a theoretical problem for philosophers in the coffee houses, not for a man with a title that goes back centuries. Sumptuary traditions still dictate the world. Only a noble may wear certain silks or carry a sword. Step out of line, and the social order will remind you of your place fast. But across the river, on the left bank, the ideas of Voltaire and Rousseau are being whispered in every dark corner. Time to see the other half. The Palais Royal. Afternoon. We cross the Pont Neuf, the oldest bridge in the city, lined with book peddlers and charlatans selling miracle cures. The Palais Royal is the heart of the new Paris. It is owned by the Duke of Orleans, and because it is private property, the king's police cannot enter. It is a place of unlicensed taverns, gambling dens, and radical printing presses. The air is thick with the smell of expensive tobacco and cheap pamphlets. In the cafes, patriots stand on tables and shout about the National Assembly. A fight breaks out over a political pamphlet. Knives aren't drawn yet, but the rhetoric is sharp. In the shadows of the arcades, a prostitute coughs into a rag, a deep, wet, painful sound of the white plague, consumption. No one notices. Everyone here is sick with something, if not disease, then a fever for change. The city pretends this den of sedition doesn't exist, but it needs the Duke's money. Bells ring for the evening prayer. If you're enjoying this reconstruction of a world on the brink, consider subscribing. It helps us keep bringing history back to life. L'Hôtel Dieu Hospital, late afternoon. Near the towers of Notre Dame sits the Hôtel Dieu, the oldest hospital in Paris. Run by the church, it is a stone fortress of misery. In the long wards, patients are packed 3 or 4 to a single bed. A laborer with a crushed leg lies next to a woman dying of smallpox. A priest hears the confession of a dying soldier who deserted the royal army. The soldier babbles about the Garde Française, saying they won't fire on the people if a riot starts. The priest prays, assuming this is just the delirium of a sinful man. It doesn't occur to him that the king's own bayonets might soon turn against the throne. To the east, the grim silhouette of the Bastille rises against the setting sun. That's next. The Bastille. Dusk. The Bastille is a mountain of stone. It is a fortress, a prison, and an armory. Inside, the Swiss guard drills in the courtyard. Scribes record the names of those brought in under lettres de cachet, royal orders that can imprison anyone indefinitely, without trial. The king's justice here is final. A messenger rides in from the military camps at the Champ de Mars, his horse lathered with sweat. Dispatches report that the crowds in the city are growing larger, that gun shops are being looted. The governor of the Bastille, Delaunay, debates with his officers. Should they double the guard? Should they point the cannons at the Faubourg Saint-Antoine? Closing the gates might provoke a riot. Keeping them open might allow a massacre. They wait and they pray, but the stone walls can't keep out the tide of history. Curfew is coming. Time to see Paris after dark. The streets after dark. Night in 1789 is pitch black. There are no street lights, only the occasional oil lantern hanging from a rope across the street. Most people are inside, their doors barred against the brigands everyone fears are lurking in the shadows. Families huddle around hearths, using tallow candles that smell like burning animal fat. The watch patrols with lanterns, calling out the hours. 10 o'clock and all is well. They look for fires and curfew breakers. In the unlit lanes of the faubourg, shadows move quietly, men carrying pikes and wearing the red, white, and blue cockades of the Revolution. Through a tavern window, voices argue about the price of bread and the king's new troops. A royalist officer scoffs, saying the rabble will scatter at the first whiff of grape shot. A lawyer counters him, citing the social contract. The argument fades into the night. The candles go out. The Seine flows on, indifferent to the fate of kings. Paris sleeps, convinced of its permanence. The end of the beginning. No one knows that within hours, the search for gunpowder will lead a mob to the gates of the Bastille. By tomorrow night, the fortress will be a ruin, and the governor's head will be on a pike. But tonight feels eternal. How do we know this? We have the journals of the bookseller Hardy, the police reports of the Châtelet, and the tax records that show the skyrocketing price of grain. History is a reconstruction. We use AI visuals and historical research to see the patterns of the past, how a worker spent his last sou, how a noble ignored the smoke on the horizon, and what the eve of a revolution actually smelled like. The city sleeps. The last torches gutter out. People breathe the same air and drink from the same polluted wells, unaware that the social contract they lived by for 1,000 years has just expired. By autumn, the king will be a prisoner in his own palace. By winter, the guillotine will be the new law of the land.